6 months later, in April 1945, she embarks on a desperate kamikaze mission to save the Japanese Empire. April 6, 1945. The Imperial Navy launches a final desperate mission in the Pacific. Operation Tango, meaning Heaven Number 1.
The Tango plan is the naval incarnation of the kamikaze. This was a one-way suicide mission led by Yamato to speed down from the home islands and attack the American anchorage at Okinawa. If they lose Okinawa, the U.S. will have the staging base it needs to attack the southern home islands. And so this is really a crucial moment.
Yamato and her screen of 9 cruisers and destroyers are spotted by U.S. submarines south of Kyushu Island. On the next morning, April 7th, more than 300 aircraft launch from American carriers and speed toward violent confrontation with the Tango force. Lieutenant Francis Ferry, piloting a Helldiver from the carrier Bennington, flies in the first wave. Just 1 month earlier, Ferry's plane was almost blown from the sky by Yamato's murderous flak barrage.
We knew what we were getting into, and there was a lot of tense feelings. The Yamato hit me once. I had that feeling of, I'm going to get you.
Ferry is at the controls of a Curtiss SB-2C, the legendary Helldiver. Son of a bitch second class, as it was known, had a higher top speed and more than twice the bomb load of its predecessor, the SBD Dauntless. Each of the pilots in Ferry's division carries an arsenal of 8 5-inch rockets and 2 1,000-pound armor-piercing bombs. Yamato looms below.
When the American planes first show up, they're greeted by what one pilot describes as looking down the cone of a volcano, namely the 18-inch main battery of Yamato, trained as high as they can go. So it was absolutely harrowing for these pilots to be confronted with this.
At 12:20 p.m., Ferry pushes over from 3,000 feet, using his guns to draw a bead on the target.
I used my 20-millimeter cannons to help me aim because I had tracers. And if the tracers were flying straight, then I knew I was flying straight. I could see my tracers going into the Yamato, and I'd drop both the 8 rockets and the 1,000-pound bombs at the same time.
Ferry's bombs strike aft of the battleship's superstructure. The other Helldivers drive home their attack.
On the forward hit, I could see smoke and that type of thing. On the aft hit, I could see fire.
Several planes fall victim to the deadly curtain of flak. But their attack takes out most of Yamato's anti-aircraft guns. The path is clear for 2 more waves of bombers. Her gun directors are knocked out of action. Then TBM Avengers bore in at wavetop level, dropping Mark 13 torpedoes. These aerial torpedoes dive to a preset depth and detonate on impact. The torpedo's 600-pound warheads rip open watertight compartments on her port side.
The port side is flooding with water, and the ship takes on a list. It's very difficult to aim your guns on a ship that's listing.
The Japanese attempt counterflooding on the starboard side. But these desperate moves only buy the Yamato another half hour of life. just after 2 p.m. The effects of at least 15 bomb and torpedo hits have reduced the mightiest battleship ever built to a sinking hulk.
There are two feelings. One, you've done something, you're satisfied, you get that feeling. But you also get a sad feeling, bombing a vessel full of young kids. And that's the thing that has bothered me over the years. Every April 7th, I go through that.
At approximately 2:30 p.m., Yamato goes down with about 2,500 officers and men. Only some 270 survivors are pulled from the sea. But the pride of the Japanese Navy will not go quietly to her watery grave. Before slipping beneath the surface, her powder magazine detonates. On April 7, 1945, carrier-launched airstrikes sink not only Yamato, but also the cruiser Yahagi and 4 destroyers in the ill-fated Tengo mission. Of more than 300 U.S. aircraft involved in the attack, 10 planes and 12 airmen are lost. In June 1945, after 2 months of savage combat, the Allies secure Okinawa. In the aftermath of the failed Tengo mission, the remnants of the Japanese fleet would never again sortie out to meet the enemy. Yamato was designed as the embodiment of imperial power and glory. Ironically, in its death throes, it became the funeral pyre of the Japanese Navy.
It's the job of the airdrop torpedoes to penetrate the Yamato below the waterline near the bow and stern, where her armor was the thinnest.
Like the torpedo pilots used to say, if you want holes in the deck, send the dive bombers. If you want them sunk, send us.
The aviators were told to torpedo her only on one side, flooding her on that side, leading the ship to capsize.
After a dozen torpedo hits, even the Yamato's 1,000 watertight compartments couldn't save her. The lower decks flooding fast, the battleship was doomed. Flooded on one side by torpedo hits and bomb blasts below deck, the doomed ship listed to port until she became unstable. As she capsized, the gun turrets were ripped from their mountings by their own weight and plunged into the sea. In the powder magazines, tons of ammunition slammed together, causing at least 3 more powerful blasts. Perhaps the largest explosions ever to occur at sea. The ship was torn into 2 parts and came to rest 1,200 feet below.